What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today. It's the 7th of May, and we're sitting at about $96.8 thousand right now. Let's see what we can get into. All right, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's go. Here we are, 8 hours, 56 minutes left in the day here. We do have lower lows in the RSI while promoting higher lows in the price. It's hidden bullish divergence. We had a very, very positive day yesterday, met with this rather neutral day today and a rather toppish looking day today. I do have some faith that from here we will continue to grow and see prices that bust through 100K and beyond. It is still possible, and we must acknowledge that it is still completely possible to pull all the way back down to $88,000. But I think at this point, it's just not going to happen. And we'll see. I could be wrong. You never know. And Bitcoin loves to surprise people, man. The ultimate shakeout is whenever it looks like it's about to pump, you just get this quick dump in your face, and then we recover just as fast. You know what I mean? So if we are to go lower, I really would expect that from a daily high closing standpoint into a wicking high standpoint right here, something in this area of about 88.8 thousand to 87.5 thousand. That's what I would anticipate to happen. Could we go lower? Sure, we could. We could even go down to these closing highs down here. Some of this support area over here, down at about $85,000. We could go that low and lower and still be fine. But I just doubt that we do. I'm even doubtful that we go to 88K at this point. I was looking at this fib, and it's funny, right? You can draw all the fibs you want. There's so many. There's genuinely so many that you can draw. Sometimes you miss some, and this one's rather obvious. Is the high to the low here, the last kind of significant high before this low, the little pivotal, this is kind of your pivotal moment here. I don't know what to call this, but this is a good way to measure any extensions out depending on a trend. Let me just try and explain that, right? Like from here, we're going down. You'd want to take the last low to high instead of the last high to low, low to high, and you can see here you found support at the golden ratio twice, the 1618 twice, found resistance at the golden ratio there, tipped the 1886 for support, right? That's how you do it, and that was the last pivotal moment before the downtrend. This is your last pivotal moment of the downtrend before the uptrend, which we're absolutely in an uptrend right now. Sorry about that. My apologies. And if we're looking at it here, what you've done is something that's a rather good show of strength, all right? Consolidating above the 1272 is probably the most productive thing you can do whenever interacting with this, primary target zone here. Something between 93.1K, 99K, whenever you break up into this area and you consistently find support on the 1272 like this, what's normally supposed to happen is if you find resistance in this area, is that, and if you go higher, it's a little bit different. Okay, I'll explain. So in the lower half of this area, what would normally happen is you would pull back to the 786, 886 zone. In the upper half, what would normally happen is you would pull back to the 100, 886 area, right? And it's not like that every single time. So just because you found resistance here once, and the perceived outcome would be to go to the 786, 886, doesn't mean that when you move up here, now the perceived outcome is here. No, it's not the same, right? This, right now, what you're doing, this was your rejection moment. This has been your time to pull back here, and you just haven't done it. You've continued to find support at the 1272, which it's very, very bullish. It's a very, very rare circumstance to do something like this, and likely, especially on the daily scale like this. Maybe it's less rare on shorter time frames, but on something this significant, it's actually pretty rare. And what this tells me is that $100,000 doesn't stand a chance. We're going up to 103 point. Like everybody's focusing on 100K being resistance. It's not going to be resistance. 100K is the most insignificant level in this whole range, right? The more significant levels are up here at 106,000. The most significant level of this whole range was right there at 92.6 thousand, right? There's nothing in between is as significant as either of these levels. And 100K is practically right here. It's kind of in the middle of the zone. There's some significance on it, but most of the time we go through it. We found resistance there, but most of the time we go through it. With this consolidation, the top area of this primary fib target zone being at about $100,000 and 100K not being that significant of a point anyways, my thoughts are we're just going to tear right through to the 1886 200 area, which is exactly where we found support from our last pivot here, low to high, all the way down here. You tipped the 1886 two times. You had it right there, right? So you might do the same thing here. Sometimes you do see these like back-to-back I don't know what to call it, like synchronized kind of fibs from the downside to the upside. And then we find resistance here. Perhaps what we do after that is we consolidate back down to about $100,000, find support on it, showing some significance there, yes, and then we continue to build to new all-time highs. Or maybe because we are in this insanely bullish, it's very bullish phase of consolidation, maybe we don't stop here and we go to the next level. One thing, the only thing that I'm confident in, do we if we go to the 2272, we would likely not stop here. You go just a little bit above. Oftentimes with the 2272, you wick above it. You don't stop right at it. The 2272 is more like an area of resistance rather than a direct wall, right? And same thing with the 1886200. It's like an area rather than a direct wall. There's no rule that says you have to stop here. You absolutely could go higher, but I would be surprised if this just continued to run all the way up to the 2618. So I'm not going to call for that. I think something between about, let's say 113,000 and 103,000 minimum maximum over the coming week. That's probably what we're in for, right? I think Bitcoin's going to do that. And to me, the most kind of compelling thing, the reason why we've been focusing on this for so long, if I can get all these out of here. The reason we've been focusing on this so long is that this fib is very significant. I think that it is a significant fib. It's not the most significant fib, don't get me wrong, but what we're doing with it is pretty damn significant, and where it's placed, I think, is significant enough to paint a path forward. And right now, it's looking like we want to go here immediately. So, not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but this genuinely could be one of the last days that you have the opportunity to buy Bitcoin below $100,000. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, it's the next day. You know what I mean? Like we're moments away from doing this. And how do we know this? Because you've consistently found support at the 1272. You've consistently gotten higher lows. You've consistently gotten lower lows in the RSI, which means your indicators have cooled off while your price remains the same. Your volume has died off as you continue to consolidate, and that's actually a good thing. Where before I was perceiving it as a not good thing, I thought that we were going to break out because the move up that we had was with lesser volume. Well, we moved down with even less volume, and we're moving up here. We're just in the same consolidation phase with volume dying off. That's actually very common when you're at the end of your consolidation phase. You're about to break out one way or another. We very well could break out to the downside, and that's why we talked about the 88 to 87K area, right? It's very possible. Again, we're here. It's very possible to go to the 100,886. That's what I was talking about earlier in the very beginning. But doing this and then going down there, it's less common, right? It's less common. The more common, it can happen. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I've never seen that happen before. It's just this would be the more common outcome that we go through here, or even all the way up to the 2618. Very, very literally, the way that I've defined the fibs here is this is your primary target zone. This is your secondary target zone right here. So in essence, once you break above the golden ratio, once you get above $99,000, you gain access to this entire zone. I don't think that we're going to run straight up to 118K, but this is something you should prepare yourself for. We really, the sense of urgency should be put on high for Bitcoin and for crypto right now, right? I've fully allocated myself back into the markets. I had a game plan to buy a lot of different cryptos at lower prices, and I just said, screw it, I'm getting in because it's stuff like this that gets me really bullish for the coming days. So I've got nothing else for you guys. I think that's enough. We've talked about it enough. If you want to look at like the further targets from there, here's all these further targets, but will we respect these going forward? Maybe, maybe not, probably. I really do think that we will find significance on this fib a lot more. And by the end of May, the expectation is to be somewhere above 130, yet below 140. I'm leaning toward the idea that we'll be closer to 140K by the end of May. That's my expectations, and I think we're on our way there now. Look at this too. Even on this fib, man. And I did say this fib's more significant. Look, you're consolidating right above the golden ratio. You could look back. I don't say it all the time, but I know I've said it a handful of times since I've made this channel. Anytime I've talked about the possibilities with the golden ratio, we talked about the possibilities with the 1272. If you want to stick around and figure out more about fibs, this is what I've been doing for 9 years. So this is just a little bit based on my experience with it. If that's something that you want to learn, this is not going to be so much about projections with Bitcoin. I mean, it will at the end, but this next part is just going to be about really the fibs, because I explained the interaction with the 1272 and what you normally see there, or if you go up to the top area of this primary target zone and what kind of retracement you would expect to see there, what would be defined as a strong movement if you do or don't see that, right? We're going to do the same thing here. If none of that makes sense, just wait. I don't know. It's like a new language. You'll learn how to say hello eventually, and before you know it, you'll know how to ask how to use the restroom. I don't know. High to low. on any fib range. This applies to any fib range, okay? The more significant, the larger the fib range, the better, right? The better it is. This is on a daily time frame. This is a multi-month consolidation phase. I'd say this is pretty significant. This is good, right? This is a good look, and this is a show of strength on and relative to our new uptrend move. Hold on, come here, Fiki. What are you doing? Just meowing. I'm like calling him over, and he's not coming. If you guys hear a cat meowing, it's just my needy cat. One of them meows like a puppy, and then the other one does not meow at all. Unless he's hungry. Anyways, $96.8 thousand, right? So consolidating like this, normally what you do with the golden ratio is whenever you move up here, however you move up here, however it is, whether you find resistance like this, you're stair stepping your way, you just basically move in a straight line kind of like that up there, however it is that you move up here. Whenever you hit the golden ratio, the expectation the first time, always on the first time, the expectation is to find resistance. And when you find resistance, you pull back to the 0.5 at least. That's a good show of strength. If you pull back to the 0.5, you bounce off of there, and then you break through, that's a good show of strength. If you pull back to the 382 and then bounce and go through there, that's still strong. It's just obviously not as strong as if you bounce off the 0.5, but still good. Oftentimes, you bounce off the 0.5, you'll go to the 886. You bounce off the 382, you go to the 786 or the 886, somewhere in this area. So essentially, a bounce off of this range leads to a bounce off of this range, right? And in more bullish scenarios, you don't stop in this range, you'll go above here. And in extremely bullish scenarios, you'll actually just go through. But most of those times, those extremely bullish scenarios don't come from a bounce off the 0.5 or the 618. They come from one of two incidences, which we have right here, right? Which the first one is, one, you just bust through. You bust through. You don't, and I said normally, it's totally fine. It's the expectation. You find resistance on your first attempt. Normally you do. But if you don't and you see this, what you're going to do is back test the golden ratio and then rip right through, right? That's when you get those bullish kind of continuations that immediately see the extensions. Option two is exactly what we're doing here, which is similar to what we were doing with the 1272. When you're supposed to find resistance here, but you just keep creeping and crawling your way through like this, my expectation would be that you don't stop in this range. My expectation would be that you at least stop above the 886, if not even above the all-time high area. That genuinely we could be making a move up here right now. So with that, in culmination with this fib here, if we take that high to low, I mean, that really makes a case, in my opinion, for prices that are above 104.6K. And potentially even as high as 118K by the end of this next endeavor. This next endeavor here, out of, from this move from a low to a high, from this move from a low to a high, this next endeavor could just make these look really small in comparison. We really might go all the way up to 118K, but I'm going to stick with this 103 point. It's close enough, right? Just because the expectation here would be that because you've consolidated like this, you'd go above the 886 doesn't mean you have to. You can stop below the 886. It's fine. That can happen too. And being that our fibs are close enough to that, I'm going to stick with the 103.8 thousand to 118,000 possibility, with a real emphasis on this area between like 113 to 104K. Okay. But this, in my opinion, just became a little bit more likely because of what we're doing with this more significant fib. I hope that makes sense. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Take care of yourselves. Hit the like button, subscribe, and bye-bye.